name is Michael O'Loughlin. I'm a poet and writer from Dublin in the Republic of Ireland, and I'm here as the writer in residence for the Prague UNESCO City of Literature, which is a sister city of Dublin. Has it fulfilled my expectations? The last time I was in Prague was in 1978, and it was a very different place, obviously, and yet curiously the same. So I think my main curiosity coming here was, what were those changes? And some of the changes are good, some of them are less good. I have to say, when I was here in 1978, obviously everything was falling down. It was quite gloomy and grim, but in fact I liked that, and I think the new Prague, with its kind of neon, tourist-ready old city, is not as beautiful as the gloomy old Prague. But that's just a personal thing. I've always been inspired by Czech writers like Holan and Hrabal and Jury Weil, and I have been inspired in some ways here because I came, I suppose, with an open mind, and it has led me into some strange corners. One thing, for example, is coming from Ireland, you're always a little bit aware that you're out on the edge of Europe. So coming to Prague is like coming to the centre of Europe. But what I found interesting is being here in this apartment, which is really on the edge of Prague. So I spent a lot of time in this neighbourhood, wandering around the motorways and the supermarkets and the wastelands and the pieces of ground in between. And I realised there is really no such thing as a centre of Europe and an edge of Europe. What I found inspiring is that Europe is everywhere. This is just as much a part of Europe, or not, as Ireland or Norway or Spain. So I found that an inspirational idea because I've always been a fan of the Russian writer Marina Tsvetaeva, who lived here in the 1920s, and one of her great inspirational poems is called Poem of the End. And in that poem she asks the question, all the world is suburb, where are the real towns? And in a way, in my work, in my poetry, I've always been trying to answer that question. I've always been looking for the real towns, the real centres. And being here, I've come to understand, from being in the place where Tsvetaeva wrote those actual words, there aren't any real towns. The whole world is suburb, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it's what we have in common. People go to the supermarkets and they buy the same food, largely. They live the same kind of life. So I think on that basis really is how we can look at life, I suppose. There's a lot of things I miss about Prague. I think primarily the beer and the bread, which are fantastic, and I love both beer and bread, particularly the dark beer that we're drinking now as the winter comes in. I'll also miss the public transport, because in Dublin the public transport is not really comparable to this. It's great to be able to jump on a tram every couple of minutes and go to your destination. I don't think people in Prague realise how lucky they are to have such a good transport system. Most of the writing that I've done in Prague, I've done actually in this room, sitting at this table. The desk is in the other side, but I've actually been working at this table because it's facing north, and I like facing north. I like the northern light. So I work mainly here because it's a very anonymous place, and I find that inspiring. I find that conductive or conducive to writing. I'm not the kind of person who can write in cafes. I find them distracting. I like to go to cafes to eat and to drink and to converse. So that has been my favourite place. I've discovered a couple of very nice cafes where I do like to spend time. I discovered the Liberal, which is near Bubny railway station, which apparently is a very famous cafe for poets to gather. So I've been there quite often, and you know, I'm always looking for new places. new cafes. I also like the old-fashioned sort of cavernas, like the Louvre and the Cafe Slavia, and I like those places as well. I like eating Black Forest Gâteau in the afternoon. Yeah, I do actually plan to come back because I've met a lot of interesting people here in Prague, and there's a lot of poetry events and there's a lot of things going on here. So I do intend to come back, definitely, yes, at some stage. I'd like to come back in the deep winter when there's a lot of snow and cold, just to see what it looks like under those circumstances. But yes, I will definitely be back, especially if you invite me.